determined to build up their cash reserves and secure a future filled with financial freedom. She found the secret to cash flowing, renting property in 2020, and she kept it to herself for a long time. But she's here today to share her secret with us. And please help me welcome Vivian.
In 2017, I had this chance encounter at Chicago Airport that changed the trajectory of my life. I was sitting there waiting for a flight to go to China for my job, and this gentleman sat down next to me. He asked if he could borrow my charger. I said, yeah, of course. And this was the perfect opportunity for me to strike up a conversation, because that's the true Vivian fashion. So I asked him, I said, where are you off to? He was wearing a tropical shirt, Bermuda shorts, and he said, oh, I'm heading to Aruba to meet my wife and kids. And I thought, oh, that sounds nice. I've never been there before. How long are you going for? And he said, I'm going there for a month. I was like, a month? That sounds like nice. And then he said, well, to be honest, the whole beach thing and the sunshine thing, I'm a little bit over it, because I just spent a month in Bermuda. So as this W-2 employee, I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, but who are you? What is it that you do that you can afford so much time off? And he explained to me that him and his wife bought a motel in their early 20s, and they owner-operated it until they were able to afford more. And then they bought more, and they bought more. At that moment, I thought, Robert Kiyosaki. He talks about not trading time for money. How do I not trade time for money anymore? And on this trip to China, all I could think about is, how can I make passive income like this guy? So when I got home, I got straight to work, and I told my husband, I said, we're gonna go into real estate, because that is the true path to financial freedom. Robert Kiyosaki sells a best-selling book about this. And I said, we're gonna flip houses, because everybody's doing it on HGTV. How hard can it be? So we started doing the research, and within 4 months, we were able to find a property to flip in Austin, Texas. And there were hard days. Someone asked me if flipping houses is difficult yesterday. I don't think the word is difficult. I think there are hard days. There were times where I would go to Home Depot for another time, the 7th time of the day, just to get paint, get the perfect screw, get some nails, whatever it was. There were hard days. And in those hard days, I just kept in my mind what I wanted. I wanted to never ask for another day off, just like that guy that I met at the airport. So this is a picture of my kids. They were helping us demo, and they were 7 and 8 at the time. And kids can't be an excuse. Let them be part of the process. So we kept flipping homes and kept flipping homes, and then I read a book called Tax-Free Wealth. Has anyone read this book? Write it in your book, write it down in your notes, called Tax-Free Wealth. And it is Robert Kiyosaki's CPA. Who knows more about not paying taxes than Robert Kiyosaki? So I read that book, and I learned that while flipping houses is amazing, you can make lots of active income, but the key to true wealth is to build passive income. So I decided that on our 6th flip, we finally made enough money, and we're gonna keep it. And we're gonna turn it into an Airbnb. And I was super excited about this, because in my teens, just before I entered university, I worked at a hotel as an intern. And during that time, I worked at front desk, I worked in banquet sales, I worked at concierge, which was truly my favorite. This was in Hong Kong, and every day people would come down and say, hey, where do you recommend we go today? And I would tell them all the secrets of where I would go, what tour sites to see, and they would come back at the end of the day and say, Vivian, your recommendation was amazing. I'm gonna come back and get more. And that's when I learned that hospitality is a really selfish career. Anyone in hospitality? Because when you give someone else joy, that joy reflects back on you. It's very, very selfish. It's like when you hand someone a present and you like to watch them open it, and they open the box and they're gleaming with a smile. That's the same kind of experience you get in hospitality. So I ran this property starting in July of 2019. And I had over 50 reviews. I worked really hard for it. Every Friday, I was making sure that everything was good. Every Sunday that the cleaner was coming in and I was restocking. It was a lot of work. But I loved it because it was just so much fun. And I had my job at the same time. But March of 2020 came along and the pandemic hit. And that threw off my entire game. So for those of you that have not been in the Airbnb space, you might not know this, but Airbnb controls your entire business. Anyone in Airbnbs here since before the pandemic? Okay, you might agree with me on this, but during the pandemic, Airbnb, no matter what your cancellation policy was, they would cancel the guest's trip because they couldn't make it. It didn't matter if you had a strict cancellation policy. So if the guest said that, oh, the wedding's been postponed, or they're sick, or they can't get on their plane, Airbnb say, no problem, we'll just cancel your reservation, and then leaving hosts high and dry. So at that moment, I was like, wait a second, I can't let somebody else, another company, control my business. So I called a friend of mine in San Diego, a more experienced real estate investor, and I said, what do you think I should do here? And he said, I think if I were you, I would switch to the 30-day stay model. Ever heard of travel nurses? I was like, I have no idea what travel nurses are, but you know what? It's better than taking reservations and getting them canceled for me. So I switched. I had no idea if it was going to work out. But lo and behold, within 2 weeks, I had a family from California relocating to Austin, and they were building a new home. And they stayed with me for 3 months. So I know you guys like to hear numbers. So my mortgage payment was $1,600, and they stayed with me for 3 months, and they paid me $3,800 a month. And just before they left, I started panicking. I'm like, how in the world am I going to do this again? Am I going to get lucky and find somebody else? Guess what happened? I got lucky. And I ended up hosting a construction team from Dallas that stayed with me for 7 months. So this construction team, they negotiated a rate because they were staying longer, and they also did the lawn, so they paid me $3,300 a month. And I thought, hot damn, I found the secret to cash flow. Anybody here ever stayed in temporary housing? Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. You guys probably saw the rates on that. You're like, how is it so expensive? But they're providing a service and it's hospitality. So that's how I pivoted from short-term rentals into mid-term rentals. All this time, I was actually still working at a job at Apple. At Apple, I was in operations, and I was responsible for inventory control at first, and then inbound logistics, and then I moved into readiness, which is launching iPhones. And everything was wonderful. I had a great career there. I spent almost 7 years there, won 2 awards for innovation, and I just love the dynamic, fun startup culture, collaboration, and the really, really smart people that I worked with. Apple stocks were splitting, earnings were exceeding expectations, everything was fine and dandy. And then I switched roles. I switched roles to launch the iPhone. And in this role, during the pandemic, you guys have heard of supply chain issues, right? Supply chain issues at Apple was a different beast. Anybody here work at Apple? Okay, we got one. So you're gonna know this. Oh, okay. So at Apple, when they announce an iPhone, we basically have a planning time of 6 days to get that iPhone from the back of the Chinese warehouse into the customer's hands. Now, if you can imagine what supply chain issues look like, even though we had chartered planes, we would have China customs suddenly close, or airport runways suddenly close. Maybe the pilot didn't show up because he had COVID. Or perhaps his support staff wouldn't be there and they couldn't run the plane. Even if we got the plane up, it would ground in Alaska due to mechanical failure. So maybe the plane finally does land in Chicago, and what happens then? They don't have enough chassis to get the stuff off the plane. Or when the materials finally got to the warehouse, we had to shut down the warehouse for sanitation. So it was every time we took 3 steps forward, it felt like 5 steps back. And it was just so much stress. So much so that after every meeting, my hair would fall out. I lost my hair in a matter of 8 weeks. It just kept coming out and coming out and coming out. And This is a photo of me and my dog, Oliver. He was the one that wouldn't judge me and just cuddle me and snuggle me so that I would feel better about who I had become. But I knew that as a mom of 2 children, as a wife, I had to learn how to turn around my mindset. And I was grateful that I'd found the secret to cash flow already. I'd already flipped a number of houses. What if it was my signal to look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what? This is now time for you to transition out of your corporate job and into real estate. So my signal was clear. All I had to do was look in the mirror. And that's what I did. So I took time off of work. I took a 3-month medical leave. And instead of looking in the mirror, which gave me so much negative energy, I chose to look in the computer and start studying the hell out of real estate. I would scour the internet and looking at deals constantly, trying to figure out a strategy of how I was going to quit my job because I didn't want to be there anymore. It made me miserable. So today, I'm going to tell you how I put all my chips on the table. I took a bet on myself, and I'm going to show you the secret to cash flow. So during that time that I took off work, all I did was scrub for deals. And this is a photo of me 3 months after I took a leave of absence. My husband and I, we celebrated quitting my job and went to Napa Valley. And that same summer, we 7x'd our net worth because I sold that short-term rental that I turned into a midterm rental, and I reinvested it all into off-market deals. That year, I bought a townhouse, I bought a single-family home, I bought a duplex. I mean, I just kept buying and buying and buying, using the funds that I had, using products like hard money lending, right? To help us get as much leverage as possible so that I can turn this one short-term rental into multiple midterm rentals. And today, I've built a 6-figure cash flow. That's cash flow, not just income, but cash flow. So, who uses midterm rentals? You guys probably think I'm here to talk to you about travel nurses. In fact, I'm not. Travel nurses don't pay the kind of rates that I like to charge. So I hope I get to teach you a few things here. So I've ordered this in the sequence of lucrativeness. We have insurance companies, we have corporations and government, people remodeling and building a home, digital nomads, construction teams, academics and interns, and travel nurses. Everybody talks about travel nurses, but the truth is that travel nurses typically don't want to pay more than $1,600 a month. Who would like $1,600 a month on their property? That's right, none of you. Because properties are expensive. So that wasn't my avatar because I had these 2, 3, 4-bedroom homes, and I thought I need to find a different client that will appreciate and pay for what I have to offer. But the one thing you need to do if you're trying to learn more about the midterm rental strategy is that it is just a strategy. In legal terms, you only have short-term rentals and you only have long-term rentals. So if you approach the midterm rentals, you need to approach it like long-term rentals, have leases in place, have background checks in place, and my opinion, make sure you have a property management system because that will pull it all together seamlessly. The second tip that I'm going to offer you today is you cannot run your furnished rental like a short-term rental. For those of you that are in short-term rental space, you have to make sure that you're not taking advanced bookings. Short-term rental hosts love to see reservations in the future because that's how you maximize your income. But in the midterm rental space, you only want to take short reservations between now and 2 weeks later, and then leave your calendar open. Because the client that I attract, they stay for 3 to 10 months. So I'm maximizing not only the revenue, but the occupancy as well. So this is an example of using a tool like Price Labs. You can also do this with Wheelhouse, and you set your minimum stays in a step sequence. And you can take a picture of this. So you want to prevent those advanced bookings. Because if you take advanced bookings and someone suddenly inquires about staying at your place and you want to take it, you now have to cancel reservations and then pay penalties to Airbnb, okay? So discourage advanced bookings. And then diversify your income sources. Airbnb is a very powerful way to run midterm rentals because 25% of nights booked are for extended stays of 30 days and more. But as I already showed you, not by relying on just Airbnb, you could put yourself into a lot of trouble. Airbnb hosts across the world, they get their accounts canceled with no explanation all the time. So you need to know how to diverse your sources by contacting and knowing the companies that use extended stays. So we talked about insurance housing earlier. These are some of the companies, and then the bottom ones as well do corporate housing. And there's millions of other companies out there. But these are the ones that are accessible to midterm rental hosts that operate in the Airbnb space. So if I were to do it all over again, because it sounds like some of you are first-time investors, this is my buy box. I've fielded over 1,000 inquiries for housing, most of them for insurance. My buy box is location, location, location. That's the top right. You want to be close to major airports, close to major employers, close to major highways, be in good school districts, being like elementary and middle school. And then if I were to think about the kind of asset that I want a 4-bedroom. I want a fenced yard. I want hard floors, no HOA. Homeowners associations can be pretty restrictive on how you run your rental, and I don't like them because I don't like being told what to do. And of course, with our aging population, we have 10,000 people turning 60 every day. We want to be able to help those clients that use our stays, and they'll pay more money to be able to have ADA access or handicap access. And my one rule for real estate investing is if it can't be solved with money, don't buy it. What that means is you can factor a lot of things into your numbers, but things you can't solve with money are bad neighborhoods, bad schools, road and traffic noise and train tracks. There's also electrical wires above. Some people have these beliefs that they'll cause cancer. And finally, bad smells, right? I have a client that bought a property. He didn't know it, but it was next to a landfill. So these are things you can't solve with money. So be careful in how you buy. So all in all, my suggestion is B-class neighborhoods and higher for this strategy. Because it is a hospitality model. You would never rent a hotel room in a really rough neighborhood. You would prefer something that's safe. Same thing applies here. So I want to pivot and talk to you guys about the insurance strategy. Raise your hand if you live in a single family home. Most of you. Now imagine this. Imagine you have a house fire. Your house is covered in chemicals, water. Now you have nowhere to live. Your insurance company will probably put you into a hotel first. Raise your hand if you'd like to stay in a hotel room, maybe 2 or 3 of them, with your spouse, with your children, with your pets. Raise your hand if that sounds comfortable to you. And we're not even talking about the 4 seasons here. We're talking about like a Marriott Residence Inn and maybe even an extended stay hotel. Well, the good news is you can use these properties that I've just talked about, midterm rentals, for your insurance housing. I'll tell you a really sad story about a couple of my clients. One of them is actually a realtor in the Austin market. She is a busy mom, and she was running around doing a million things like us moms do, and she didn't realize she had a little tiny pilot light on her stove, and she set a box on top of it and went for a shower. By the time she had come out, her house was already up in flames. No one was home, thank God. But suddenly, she had nowhere to live. Another client of mine, they had hired a plumber to go sweat some piping in a bathroom. And I don't know how plumbing works exactly, but when he was sweating the pipe, the fire went up the pipe and into the attic. And next thing you know, his house was on fire. So temporary housing is a need. Temporary housing is needed. So I definitely would love to stay in a house as opposed to a hotel. But I also want to make sure that I'm staying in a nice house that's to my standards. For most of you, you probably have a brand of hotels that you're loyal to. I'm staying at the Marriott And I stay at Marriott's or I stay at Hilton's because I know and trust that brand. I know what I'm stepping into when I walk in. And I think that it's important to have and associate a brand of temporary housing that you can relate to. So let me show you who's part of the Hestia brand. This is one of our home heroes. This is a host. She is in Houston, Texas. If you're not from Houston, you might not know this, but Houston is one of the most saturated short-term rental markets in the nation. That means that there's so much competition, but because Marie has a beautiful single-family home, she keeps it ultra clean and is designed for extended stays, I was able to refer her some business for a client that not only stayed for 4 months, like it's showing in the deck here, but she actually stayed for 6 months. What would almost $60,000 of rental income look like for you? I asked her exactly that, and she said, I would buy more midterm rentals. I would do the same. This was a water damage client, and most water damage clients, like if a pipe bursts or you have a leak with a dishwasher, whatever it is, it takes time to get that repaired. And the average water damage client will stay for 3 to 4 months. And then we have Steve Wang. Some of you here might know him. He's a physician in California, and he owns a rental property in Austin, Buda, just south of Austin. And Austin's also one of those markets that are super saturated. But because he has this beautiful home right in that same neighborhood as where that client was, he was able to host this stay for 7 months for 2 kids, 2 adults, and a dog. And he's just finished hosting, generating almost $41,000 in rental income. And I asked him how he felt, and he said, I'm definitely liking STRs more. He loves the consistency of regular rent. Who doesn't love steady cash flow? And then some of you guys know Nelson Lin. He's the founder of Subtle Asian Real Estate. There's 24,000 people on Facebook that follow him. And I do the property management for him and his mom. And we just got, after finishing a 5-month direct booking from a realtor client, we just got a 60-day booking at $8,500 a month to start. So I'm hoping that they're going to love their experience there and that they'll extend depending on how long their contractors take to fix their home. And I asked him what he thought, and he said seeing the check has really lifted the weight off his shoulders. So I talked about this network. Hestia is my brand, and I, like many of you who are in the real estate space, you would only refer your network to someone that you trust, right? So I have felt like I had to do the same because I provide high quality stays. I like to make sure that my clients are taken care of, my homes are ultra clean, that I've done a really great job in providing this hospitality model. And the people that I refer my business to, because I'm not gonna have the right asset at the right place at the right time. So I wanna make sure I build out this network of people that I trust, and that's where Hestia comes in. Hestia is the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home. So in this network, we wanna make sure that we have homes that are stylish, that are ultra clean and well-maintained, fully furnished, exceptional hospitality, luxury sleep experiences, dedicated workspace, high-speed internet, easy parking, and in-home laundry. I'm sure many of you guys have stayed at Airbnbs before. Is the consistency and the cleanliness all over the place? So we put in budgets in there to make sure that those homes are deep cleaned before the client moves in. And we just want to make sure that we're focusing in on the single-family home space. Because there's plenty of apartments out there that do temporary stays, but not all of us are comfortable living in an apartment. We bought a single-family home because that's the lifestyle we enjoy. So if I were to get displaced, I would love to be in a single-family home. So if you know someone displaced, have them ask for a Hestia home. If I don't have one in my network, I will find one and bring one in. So if you don't take away anything from this presentation, I want you to take a photo of this. This is my insurance policy, and I want you to understand how insurance pays out if you get displaced. What that means is, this is my personal policy. There's only 2 parts I want you to look at, is coverage A and coverage D. Coverage A, that number there is how much the insurance company estimates that it will cost to fix your property, regardless of the land. And then on coverage D, it's called loss of use. That is how much money your insurance company is going to give you should you need to have temporary housing or doggy daycare or dry cleaning or restaurant bills. So that loss of use number should be 20% of coverage A. So coverage D should be 20% of coverage A, and you'll see my number is $84,000. It wasn't always that way. When I first learned about this, I actually looked at my policy and I only had 10%. And I was thinking at 10%, if I lose my house and I'm displaced for a year, I can't even afford any of my midterm rentals. So I decided to up it to 20%, which should be the standard, and that will give you enough comfort and peace of mind that you are not going to stay at an extended stay hotel and that you should be able to rent something that's comparable to what you're living in. In California, I would say that the average single-family home furnished rental is between $8,000 to $12,000, depending on where you're at. So when you look at that, when you look at your own insurance policy, please take that into consideration. So Hestia is my brand. It's a trusted brand in midterm rentals. We send an inspector to every property that we onboard, and we only accept professional hosts with at least 1 year of experience in the single-family home space. My vision for Hestia is to be a household name, just like the names of Hilton and Marriott. We're still new, we're only about 1.5 years old, so I'm spreading the word here. The journey is not just about creating beautiful spaces for people to stay in, but it's also about helping real estate investors to build financial wealth and being rewarded for the work that they do in temporary housing. And in the words of my former employer, and I'm going to turn around and read this so I don't butcher his quote, that your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. On January 2nd, 2021, I had lost 95% of my hair. And my husband looked at me, he's like, why don't you just shave it? Just shave it, because then it's not controlling you anymore. And I thought that was a good idea. So we pulled a stool into the bathroom, and he took out his electric buzzer, and I sat down, and he started buzzing my hair, row by row, what was left of it. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to look back at, because no one really knows what your head looks like until it's gone, like your hair. And to my surprise, when I looked up at my reflection in the mirror, there's only one thing that I could say in my head, and I said it out loud. I said, damn, you have a nice head. So, women, when we lose our hair, you think that you lost a part of your identity. And that may feel that way for a while. But if you learn to change your mindset and learn to see the positives and the good in everything, it can really help you through this journey. When I was stripped of my identity, I figured that I was actually still the same funny, gritty, positive person. I just didn't have hair taking out time from my life anymore. And I'm truly excited to be helping other real estate investors use this strategy to build passive income and offer a truly wonderful hospitality experience to the families that need it in the insurance space, relocation space, or corporate space. You might look at me and feel sorry for me that I lost all my hair, but I'm asking you, don't. Because losing my hair didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being right. That's a beautiful presentation.
Oh, I guess I have questions, right?
Yes. Does anyone have any questions? Don't be shy.
Coming from a former employee myself, my question is, why did you, how old why did you feel like 2020 was the right time for you to pursue your real estate career?
I left Apple because I was miserable. I was so miserable that I didn't feel like I could get out of bed anymore. I'd never experienced this in my life, but there were days where I was so down, and I was thinking to myself, what am I doing this for? For an iPhone? Is there more to my purpose than that? And I knew that I had to find a way to get out of bed, and I found energy through real estate. Yes? Yeah, you have a mic over there.
I have a question over here.
Oh, yes.
Does midterm rentals work in like high-price markets? Kind of like, you know, the Bay Area, all the home prices are pretty high.
Yeah.
I guess that's my question, but also, if they do, like, how do you kind of look at pricing structures, or like, is there a tool that you use to see like your daily rates?
Yeah, so there's a simple napkin math that I use. It's 2 times long-term rent is your fast napkin math. So you have to look at the rates, what long-term rents would be in the Bay Area, and then double that, right, as your potential. But of course, factors that will impact how much you earn will be your furniture, your design, your photos, your hosting experience. All those things come into play. But it works everywhere because fires and accidents and water damages happen everywhere, and your insurance will cover that as long as you have the right coverage.
Do you also cover like, or do you also service the Bay Area too?
So we have properties, we have over 240 Hestia homes across the nation right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had a question over here.
Thanks for your presentation and for sharing your story and motivation. My name is Maggie. I was asking about the midterm rentals occupancy rate. Is there anything such as occupancy rate? Is it guided by a market, or is there like a number you can think of as I got a good occupancy rate this year, which is within the benchmark?
Yeah, super great question. I feel like in 2021 and 2022, everybody and their grandma jumped into short-term rentals. And as time goes on, you're seeing your occupancy rates and your revenue come lower and lower and lower because people have changed their travel habits. They've changed the way they stay in places. I mean, my husband and I, we stay in hotels now. We don't stay in Airbnbs that much ourselves, at least not for the short stays. But I would say in the midterm rental space, as long as you are buying in the right locations, again, the location B class, I think you should expect to see 75% occupancy and up. It's a much more reliable and dependable occupancy. Anybody else? Yes.
I like your hairstyle.
Thank you.
You're doing just the when you hit the rock bottom, that's when you found your true success.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, Vivian. My name is Sylvia, and I currently also own one midterm rental, and I have a bonus for that. And as I'm learning more about NTR, I want to know what your in-house management is like for out-of-state investments, especially like how do they leverage insurance, coverage fee, and other things.
So my properties that I run, I'm like Elisa and all the other people. I like control. I like to control my assets in my own market. So my property management company only manages specifically in Austin, but Hestia branded homes, it's like a licensing agreement. They're all over the country. But how I run it, I've automated and systemically put processes into place. So my team just becomes control tower and ops. So we use a property management system, and I recommend this for everybody that's hosting furnished stays. My property management system gets everyone, we take instant book, because the easier you are to do business with, the more occupancy and revenue you make. Okay, that's number one. So how do you do that? You get a property management system. My property management system gets someone to click on a link, they sign a rental agreement on every single stay, even through Airbnb. Then they have to take a photo of their license, front and back, and then they take a selfie. And then we use AI to make sure that that's the same person. And then after that, we take a security deposit, and that's when we accept a host. I think these are the best practices to show your co-host on to make that happen, to increase your revenue occupancy.